attending. Welcome to the webinar today, where we're joined by a couple of experts in the field you may be familiar with, Andy Kimbry and Krishna Chodipilli. They're going to be sharing their experiences and answering some questions that are being sent to us via social media and through our alumni network, as well as opening the floor up to questions from the attendees that are here with us today as well. So just to introduce myself, my name is Hassan Hussain. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Leadership Tribe. And my job here today is just to make sure that you guys get the access and the questions across that you want to ask to our two lead trainers, Andy and Krishna. So I'll let these guys introduce themselves. Andy, do you want to kick us off, please?
Sure thing. Yes, my name's Andy Kimbry. I came from a background in software engineering. I grew up through project management, PMP technologies, and working with, then learning about Agile, wanting to do more about Agile, becoming a Scrum Master, Agile coach, and an enterprise leader coach as well. And very proud to be here to talk about how you guys can be enterprise coaches too. Krishna.
Thank you very much, Andy. So my name is Krishna Chodipilli. I work with Leadership Tribe, and I started my career in software engineering as well, but most of the time I've spent in change management, delivery management, project management, as well as transformation. And transformation in the digital aspect and transformation as an organization, helping them to deliver better, faster, and cheaper products to the market quicker. So that's where I work in. And some of my passions is work in training. I have trained more than 50,000 people in more than 150 countries. And I met Andy through one of my training programs as well. And I have the luxury of working with him, which also brings me to my technical skills, which are rubbish. I'm trying to hold with one hand and I'm trying to talk at the same time. So while I'm trying to fix it.
Oh,
eliminated technology.
Yeah. I guess Krishna may have just pulled a plug out while he was holding his monitor up. I'm sure he'll be back with us very shortly. So maybe we'll do a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. So to everybody in attendance as well, in the bottom of the Zoom window, there is a chat bubble where you can send messages through there. I'll just send a quick hello. So you can see that pop up in the corner. So feel free to ask any questions in there. But there is also a Q&A section as well. If you can't see the chat bubble, you may have access to Q&A, question and answer. You can ask questions in there as well as we go along. As they come through, we can ask them as and when they happen, or maybe at the end, depending on what the questions are like. But feel free, we want to keep this as interactive as possible and yeah, encourage as much feedback and conversation as we can. Krishna, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Did you stand on the wrong cable, Krishna?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Excellent. Cool. So cool. Okay. Thank you, Andy, Krishna, for the intros. So what we'll do is we'll get started with some of the questions that were sent to us via social media to begin with. First of all, we're going to start off with the question is, and this question came from Jonathan in Bradford, UK. Where were you in your Agile journey when you came to learn about and attend the ICP ENT course? So just for clarity on that, ICP ENT is the Agility in the Enterprise certification. The shorthand for it is ICP ENT, one of the ICAgile accredited courses that we offer. So let's start off with Andy on that one. So Andy, where were you in your Agile journey when you came into ENT?
Yeah, so I was, thank you, yes. I was working at the time as a project manager, and I wanted to gain more insight into agility, not just agility for Java developers or for website engineers, but agility at a higher level. So looking into agility as at the leadership and the head of departments, like how can we apply those same kind of Scrum values or Kanban values to entities that are formally like very, very strict in their approach. So I came to Leadership Tribe. I love the name Leadership Tribe. I've always taught when I've been teaching as a Scrum Master, teaching the wisdom of the tribe. So I resonated with the name, and I came to do the ENT and CAT, and that's how I came to that course. I really, really enjoyed it, the interactivity and the learnings, and it kind of validated me in what I was thinking, that agility can be extended upwards to the leadership level, to the CXO level. And then obviously, maybe a couple of years later, I came to work with Leadership Tribe, teaching that, because I highly believe that agility is not just for JavaScript. Agility is for organizations, and I love teaching this course. Krishna, what do you think?
With respect to agility in the enterprise and coaching agile transitions, what I've learned and observed about is when you talk about these things cannot be done in silos or in isolation. So one of the things, what we teach and educate, what we've been educating leaders for the last 15 years, how can we look at the entire organization or the teams and bring in a big picture, which we also call them as a system. So if you look at a system, you just can't, okay, just a quick high level introduction of what a system is. A system is just not a computer or an element on its own. It's think of it as a universe. Think of it as all the elements work together to deliver some value. Even within your organization, you got HR, sales, marketing. So these all entities are working together to deliver some sort of a value. So how do we bring those perspectives, and how can we work with some of the leaders who can be an absolute pain at times? Come on, we got something new called Agile. Screw you, I have done so many things in my past that works for me. So how do you educate, and how do you facilitate those elements? That's what we've been mentoring, coaching, and training. And that's what we do for our bread and butter. And we've been working with the various organizations globally. And what we've been learning, we deliver that as part of the training program. So that's a short element of what we are doing as an organization and what we teach in our programs as well. Hassan?
I think sorry, Krishna, I think an important thing about, like, when you're talking about like systems, like a family is a system, right? And in some ways, families are like organizations that you have relationships with other people. And we really delve into that when we're talking about coaching agile transformations and enterprise agility. All the interactions are most important over the processes and tools as well.
Excellent. Cool. Thanks very much, guys. So yeah, I think what's key here is no matter where you are in that organization or in that system, there's an opportunity to learn more about how you can start thinking at an enterprise level, not just at your part within that system. So wherever you are in your agile journey, the opportunities to start the bigger picture thinking and thinking wider spread is there. And I think that's one of the key things about the ENT program is looking at that bigger picture. Next up, we had a question which was, I think this is probably based on the fact if anyone's had a look at the ICP ENT or the CAT, which is Coaching Agile Transformations page on our website, or read up on it anywhere else, there's quite a long list of learning objectives in there. Some are covered in a bit more detail than others. Some are just touched upon and maybe covered in more detail in an additional course. But I think the question came in, was there any specific learning objectives from ENT or CAT that stood out in particular for you guys to make the choice for that course? So let's start again with Andy on that one.
I think my favorite one And this was my favorite when I took the course, and it's now my favorite when I teach the course, is overcoming the kind of the obstacles that happen at an organizational level. So we're talking about like siloed thinking, like Krishna mentioned, talking about like organizational silos, talking about resistance to change and how we can overcome, how we can improve, how we can educate people about why change is good, because that's what Agile is all about, is talking about, you know, adapting to change and moving fast. And when I talk to people and say, would you like to adapt to change quickly and move quickly? No one says no. So, but there are always these obstacles that we overcome when we're talking about such things as silos, resistance to change, resistance to decision-making, decision latency, and all those kind of things. That was actually really helpful to me before I started at Leadership Tribe, in bringing that kind of agility to the organizations that I was working with, to help understand these are the kind of ways, like, we need to understand what the barriers are. And once we understand those barriers, it's much easier to jump over them. That's my take on it.
Got you. Great. So that's great. So it sounds as though it's the maybe less about the technical elements of what Agile is, but more a little bit about how can you help your team, your superiors, your direct reports understand the benefits and see where they fit in this process and how they can improve, bring things to the surface, etc.
This is where organizational agility really comes in. That we're no longer talking about like blockers in a technical sense. We're now talking about how can we work together personally. And the ENT and CAT goes into a lot of detail about personal relationships, how we can work together with our leaders, with our teams, and where we fit in that kind of eco structure, because an organization is an ego structure. Ego structure and an eco structure as well. So understanding those kind of helping to understand that really accelerates agility in an organization, in my experience.
Excellent. Good stuff. Krishna, anything to add on that one?
I echo Andy on top of it. When you're looking at events which are happening, events, for example, some shit happens, or some changes which happen in the markets which have an impact in an organization, and that it has a ripple effect. And when that ripple effect happens, you see a lot of events which are happening within the organization. Sometimes you might see some technical challenges, sometimes you might see some social challenges, and there are so many things which bubble up. These are just events. As a systems coach and an enterprise coach, you need to look at how are these events interacting with each other. So for that, you need to look at the wider system, zoom in. When you're zooming in, you will find some sort of patterns. And these patterns, when they're happening, so can we be prepared for these patterns? Okay, fair enough. Yes, they are. And if these patterns are consistently happening, what are the underlying structures? These structures, for example, were they created yesterday, ladies and gentlemen? So they might have been created 10 years ago. If you take an example like IBM, which has 100 years of experience, those processes which start with the blah, 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 they're numbers. And those structures, they've been created for the problems which existed in the past. So do you expect with the name of change or agility, you can bring change and without changing those structures? And if you dig deeper, if you dig really deeper, you'll find the mental models, the things which you cannot see, the psychological safety, the pressures which has been put on the people, and the amount of stress which causes various other issues as well. So for this, ladies and gentlemen, one has to zoom in, zoom out, and work with various facilitators, coaches, and facilitate and articulate what the hell the real problem we are working with. So how do we articulate that? That's also the most important thing. In the name of Agile, let's change. It doesn't work. Or if the name of anything you want to bring change in, it doesn't work. That's my experience. If you have a different experience, can you type it in the chat window, please? I would love to learn from you more. So for this, yes, one has to zoom in and zoom out. That's not enough. But how do you collaborate? How do you work with various change agents? And how do you coach and train those leaders to give new perspectives? Recently, I got my eyes tested and I realized that I can't see for jack shit. So having this new pair of glasses is giving me a new perspective to see and look at things better. So that's what we teach. Okay, that's what I teach. And Andy is much more professional. So I would recommend Andy, if you're looking for a professional approach, Andy.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. That's great. So we've had a couple of questions come in from the audience today. One of them, I think, maybe touches on some of this. So we're going to maybe jump to this one. It's a bit of a long one. I'll kind of read it out. It says, so why are coaches involved in ego conflicts as part of organizational transformations? This has been a common experience in a lot of transformations. Most of them, I think, referring to coaches, are creating more dependencies by doing assessments, metrics, dashboards, etc. Any kind of making lots of documentation, and that's how they show they're productive. So I think maybe here I guess this is an interesting one for both, because both of you are not only excellent trainers, you're both coaches as well. You both worked in organizations as coaches. You both trained other coaches on how to be coaches. It sounds like this might be something common in the market, that when a coach comes in, maybe barriers come up defensively because there's too much micromanagement or zooming in on numbers and metrics. Any thoughts on that? Or any response to that, guys?
I have a few perspectives on this. One thing, there's also the understanding, when you look at a word coach, in some of the cultures and the organizations in countries where I worked, they think when you bring in a coach, that means we have a problem. No, coaches are there to help. Bill Gates he said a favorite quote: if you want to be successful, get yourself a coach. Because these coaches are not here to tell you what the right answer is. They are here to bring up what is existing to you, and with the enough information being inclusive, bringing all those various stakeholders and asking, what can we do? What is the minimum viable things we can do to bring some changes in? Yes, there is a cultural element to it. And the second thing, which I've also observed, is as a learning coach, think of it this way. When you just passed out from your university or your graduation, whatever you've done, how many skills do you have? So there might be some coaches. I was one of them. You go for a Scrum Master training program for 2 days. Yes, I am a Scrum Master in the name of Scrum. This is the way it happens. So there is some understanding of some wisdom of using those tools. It's not a tool set where you open it up and say, kumbaya, let's make things happen. It doesn't work. So being more inclusive, understanding what is really happening and getting more people in, that would work. And the third thing, which I've also observed is, my Agile is better than your Agile. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to look at a different perspective. Be curious about what things are happening. I've been in some of the discussions, they were like, SAFe is wrong. Okay, come on, take it easy. It's not about a framework which is wrong. Things are there, they've been created for a purpose. So when you have a tool or something, understanding the current environment and the right experience and the right help you need to use those tools. So I can keep on talking about this topic, which is...
No, I think...
I will hand over to you. Sorry.
Great point. No, sorry, Andy, unless you've got something else to add.
I just like to plus one, Krishna, just like a lot of time, people view bringing in consultants or agile coaches or something like that as this is a problem to be solved. But we live in a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous environment with pandemics, all the other things that are going on. we also, Agile coaches, focus on opportunities. So we're not just brought in at the enterprise level to solve problems. We're not here to fix things for you. We're here to identify opportunities and how we can work together, how we can work. We work with some energy companies, for example, that want to learn how we can adapt to the changing environments. That's where we bring in opportunity as well. So focus not just on the problems, focus on the opportunities. And in my experience, when I, as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, my first question I ask is not, what can I do to help? Is first of all, I ask, what is going well? Let's build on that. Let's build on what's going well, first of all, and then let's look at the problems that are underlying those. Let's build on success and look at opportunities that we can use to improve our situation. Agile coaches aren't your enemies. They are always looking to improve, help. Well, at least I'm talking for myself and Krishna, but we are your friends.
That's great, guys. Thank you. And I think Sri Fani Krishna added a comment, I think, on that back of that question to say that some of these KPIs and tracking and artifacts that have been created are to show that the deliverables are happening, which I think is also a very good point. It's a way of tracking and progress. And I always feel as well that, you know, having any kind of data is useful. So a bit like with Agile, there's a prioritization of work that comes into play. What's going to give us the best value quickest? How do we prioritize our workload? But when it comes to coaching, like I say, Andy starts with what's working well and let's build on it. But then also becomes, where do we go next? And by using KPIs and metrics and numbers and data and artifacts, you can identify, okay, this is the next priority. Here's where you're going to get the best gain marginally. By improving this area, the value knock-on effect is going to be greater. So if you imagine someone coming in brand new as a coach, and there's another question here as well from Rohan, which mentioned, or more of a statement really, but he said most organizations recruit coaches and then resist their suggestions. So they leave the transformation midway, or people get stuck to the older ways of working. Very common, we hear that as well. Very, very common. Because change can be scary and change can be hard. Andy, I think, is going to help us with that one.
Yeah, I resonate strongly. Thank you, Rohan, for bringing this up. I resonate strongly with that because, yes, a lot of organizations will recruit a coach for a 2-month or 3-month contract, and they come in and they give a load of ideas, and then they go off, they leave. This is specifically talking about the ENT and CAT courses, we like to talk about change that sticks. And when we're talking about sticky changes, it's not just changing how often you do your stand-ups. It's not about saying what is your time box for your sprint planning. It's not about saying how is your Kanban board structured. It's about talking about the organizational values and the cultural change. And we talk a lot about culture within our courses, about how you as Agile coaches can work within that culture, how you can adapt that culture, and how you can influence that culture. The Krishna, you'll be able to tell me who said this. The guy that said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So we teach these ways around that. You can come up with an amazing business strategy in 3 days. It will take you 3 days to build an amazing business strategy. It will take you 90 days to build a cultural strategy and bring everyone along. And that's where we're talking about the CAT course, the Coaching Agile Transformations. That's where we talk about what is the culture, how can we work with the culture, how can we build on that culture, the things that are going well, what can we do on the things that could be improving.
Cool. That's great. Thank you, Andy. Sorry, somebody just let me know in the Q&A section that the chat wasn't working, the live chat in the corner. So I think it should be on now. So if anyone wants to join in the conversation in there, they're more than welcome. But it should be working now. Excellent. So that's something that I've noticed as well with some of our clients. We actively encourage that once our training or the training program, particularly if it's private training or customized training, is completed, that we actively encourage that a coach stays working with that client for a set period of time, depending on the needs of the organization, because it's very common that old habits come back. Very, very common. So by keeping that coach in, it can stop that. And it gives, I think, touching on the question as it came through, I think you do also need buy-in from the top as well to help with making sure that the suggestions are listened to from the coach and the transformations are put in. And I think that brings us back to why the ENT and the CAT programs are so important, because it just takes that step back from training the individual to thinking, where does the individual fit at the enterprise level? So, yes. For the guys that have completed that course, I think, well, obviously both of you train it and have, but Andy, what were your biggest takeaways, would you say, from those courses when you completed them? What did you, when you were a learner, what did you learn from them, and what did you take away best?
I think the complex adaptive systems thinking was my biggest aha moment during that course. And we talk about that in both of those courses, the ENT and the CAT. And it was, so I've always, as a Scrum Master, Scrum.org specifically says that Scrum is an incomplete framework by design. Now, organizations are almost the same, because once you put people inside of those organizations, those people have their own hopes, fears, desires. The people will help to structure your systems. So when we take a systems thinking approach, we can zoom out and look at the whole system, but we need to understand the complexity of the system and the people within that system as well that are working there. So complex adaptive systems thinking is something that is was a big aha moment for me. And ideally, yeah, obviously we teach this in both of those courses. If you want to read more about that, just go on YouTube and look up complex adaptive systems thinking, and then email hello@Leadership Tribe and ask us how we can help with you.
There we go. It's the one. Thank you. Krishna?
This reminds me of a story which I recently came across. I met this gentleman. He said, dude, I can't believe I've been having this headache every single day. Can you believe it? I said, all right. And he'd been talking to the doctors, and I was listening to him, and he said, doctor, give me a pill that can solve this problem. And guess what? When we dug deeper and talking to this person, he loves to have a few pints every night. And every morning he wakes up with a hangover. All right. If you want a pill, you can get a pill that can only solve an element of it. And some of the coaches who I met in this training program, Krishna, give me a tool how to solve this. Seriously? If I give you a tool, that will only solve for a particular piece of things at that moment of time. How do we look beyond and say, how do we remove those underlying issues? How do we come up with those different strategies and bringing more inclusivity in the way we fix them as well? So when you're talking about complex adaptive systems, which my colleague has said, it's human beings who make it complex. And as we are adapting, and the systems which we are working at, they are not stable. And coming to a training program and say, aha, 2 days, and I've been baptized in agility and enterprise, I will go and fix everything. It doesn't work. What works is learning and practicing these tools and working with other coaches. And it also reminds me of this amazing coach I've been mentoring. His name is Moritz. I've been very guilty of not being in touch with him, this dude. So how he works with other coaches within our organizations, trying to ask questions, being more nosy, and following on various different aspects of it as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, look beyond, zoom out from your existing problems and ask yourself, what are the other things which are at play here? If it's not only you, bring more people in your team. It's not only your responsibility to fix the entire thing if you want to fix it. Because remember, there will be unknown issues. There will be known unknowns, and there might be unknown unknowns which we might not which we might discover at all. So think about it. Hassan.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you. So yeah, no, I think there's obviously there's a maybe a bit of a separate answer. How much of a step up would you say ENT is from the likes of ACC, or ENT or CAT is from an ACC course? Like, is it something that you could expect somebody to do straight after? A bit of time in between? Do they need it? Just my curiosity, really.
Hassan, I would love to take a different approach, because I love the way you looked at this problem. So agility in enterprise is just a knowledge-based training. It gives you different aspects of what as an enterprise is, what are the different things which impacts the enterprise. And there are topics like bullwhip effect. Do we need to understand what a bullwhip effect is as an enterprise coach? Hell yeah, according to Krishna. So this enterprise, agility in enterprise, it's an overview. It's a knowledge, more or less, it's a knowledge base. Facilitation, how do you articulate? How do you talk about, how do you bring people to solve a problem? So for example, I've seen some of the coaches, including me while I was new in my journey, it's all about and Agilist, it's amazing, and it does this, Scrum is this, and it does things. It's what I hear is me. Seriously? If you want to go for a me, people switch off. Most of the people, okay, let's do a little vote. How many of your agile coaches love to do me? It's all about me and me. Let's see a poll. Is there a poll? Let's see your answers.
There's no poll, but let's assume what you think it is. Whatever you think the answer is, that's what it is.
Type in the chat window, please. So how do we emphasize what the problem is? Buts, there are buts in the journey. How do we bring those? How do we bring it more visible? And how can we focus on it? So there are some tools within the facilitation program that will help you to articulate better. And in the coaching program, again, it also gives you an overview of what Agile Lean practitioner is. Okay, if I'm Agile, can it be happening? There are some amazing tools in Lean. How do we bring them both together? And ladies and gentlemen, you think of the word practitioner, a person who's been practicing day in and day out. That's an Agile Lean practitioner. On top of it, what do you mean by technical agility? What do you mean by business agility and transformation agility? Oh, we want to bring change. In the name of Agile, change doesn't happen overnight. In some cases, it does. COVID happened, lockdowns opened overnight. So, and there are tools of facilitation, coaching, mentoring, training. So how do we bring those concepts all together to solve a problem? So for example, how do you build high performance teams using these tools? And it's just not only technical, basic jargon, what you learn from the course, is also learning from other people's challenges, what they're facing as well. So that's what the facilitation and the coaching program does. And enterprise and agility, it's an overview. Okay, you got this overview. What's next? So using the coaching, facilitation, and the knowledge what you have in enterprise and agility, you can look at how do you coach agile transitions. So some people have a different view. I agree, and everyone is right according to them. So if you want to look at it in isolation, they will work. But if you want to if you want to link it up as a bundle or as an entire flow, that also works. Sorry, Hassan, it came back to a typical consultant event.
Yes. I was just about to type. There was a question in there somewhere. Yeah.
Shut up, Krishna. I've got my elbow down here for you. Enough. Let's move on.
Oh yes. I think I see. Oh, go ahead, Andy. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add that some of you here will be Scrum Masters, And a Scrum Master has 3 accountabilities. They have an accountability to the product owner, they have an accountability to the team, and they have an accountability to the organization as well, in terms of coaching the organization in why Scrum is good, why we're doing Scrum, what's the point of Scrum. And at that level, this is where we look at your PSM2 or your ACC. This is where we look at how do we coach that next level. And this is what got me excited about taking the ENT and now teaching the ENT, because Scrum Master, you may think that Scrum Master is just a single role job that all that you need to do is just facilitate the Scrum meetings. No, according to the Scrum Guide, you have a duty, a duty of care to the organization. And that is where enterprise coaching comes in. This is where we start talking about working with leaders, and how do we work with leaders and bring leadership up to that level of agility. And that's what excites me about these courses.
That's great, Andy. No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of reason that was one of my questions, not from the audience. The reason it came to mind was based on the questions we received about potentially the leadership not taking on board the coach's recommendations, or people not following on with what's happening, what they've learned in the training and putting it into practice. And I think that's where the benefit of that enterprise level is, because you need to, I guess there's an element of selling involved. You need to sell the idea, sell the vision of the future to the person you're coaching, but you also need to sell the vision up the chain as well. Here's why we need to make that change. Here's why we need to invest in this. The cost of change, money, commercially as well as time. So there's an element of coaching up as well as coaching down, and I think that's why ACC and ENT come together nicely. And it does. And I think that's helped answer the question for me, is that it doesn't matter. The gap in between when you do the courses is not as important as the value you're going to deliver by having both of them. It's not like I've done ACC, I can live off that for a few years and then come back and do it in the team in future, because every organization's usually got some coaching above and coaching below. So.
Absolutely, like they're not separate. They homogenize with each other. They work together. And
I've learned something today as well. Good.
Well, there you go, Has. You can if you want a ticket, our next ENT course is in October.
I'll let you know. Cool. So how are we for time? Got about just over 50 minutes to go. There's been a few more questions from the audience that are a bit more general, I think, in terms of you coaches. Part of this webinar was ask you anything, any questions you want, anything you want to ask a coach but was too afraid to ask, etc. We've got one here, which was from Prasant. What is the biggest challenge in Agile as per your experience? I think we may have touched on some of this in terms of the ego and the culture and the defenses. Is that the answer we're looking at here, or is there anything else you'd want to add?
I think when I'm a professional Scrum Master, and I teach Scrum to large and small organizations as part of Leadership Tribe. And I think for me, the top part of the Scrum Guide, where it talks about the empirical control process and the values, that is the most important. The rest of it, that's just stuff that you do. If you can implement the values, if you can make people respect each other, have focus, if you can enable courage within your teams, you will make them high performing. And then you start becoming agile as almost as a side effect. But by having those values, and you can look into that, we talk about this a lot more in our ACC class about the values and disciplines within Agile. I think that's the key, is not just to have a daily stand-up every day. I've heard one of my friends and colleagues, Mona, says that one of her favorites is we have Jira now, so we're agile.
Yeah.
That's not true. You have values now, and now you're agile. That's according to me. Krishna, you may have a different idea.
I echo with you. On top of it, of course, you can bring in the perspective about the values and the processes, frameworks. They're out there. That's the stuff you do. But how do you help and uplift your teams? There are tools which you need to use. And for that, there's a tool called training. If you came across it, in training, it's not about, again, me, how much knowledge I have, what you need to learn. It's understanding your user, how much knowledge they already have, and how you are complementing with additional information which they can use to solve a particular problem or something. That's training. And there's also an element called mentoring. As a subject matter expert, you can be a Scrum Master or a coach. With your experiences, how can you share that knowledge? When you're sharing that knowledge, should it be my way? Or what is the way you can help that person understand? And because as a mentee, you should be taking those steps. You should be taking those steps moving forward. It's not your mentor who will be doing it. As a mentee, you will be doing it. So there is a tool, that's mentoring. And there's an element called professional coaching. So ICF, International Coaching Federation, they do amazing programs. And most of my coaches I work with in leadership, they are accredited. The reason why we accredit, these people have the practice, it's the amount of hours they have to spend to get that accreditation. Yes, it validates that. So having that experience, as a coach, you just go, according to me, you should be doing this. You are looking a little bit sick today. Let me do a simple brain surgery on you. Hell no. So how do you help those people to look at their own problems, bringing them visibility, using powerful questions, using listening as a tool? And how do you converge those conversations to deliver that value? So coaching, mentoring, training, and yes, I've already explained to you about facilitation. So these other tools need to come together to deliver, even if you're a Scrum Master, or think of it as a leader, as a change agent. You are a leader in your home. When you're trying to bring, every day you are bringing a change in your family. And sometimes things work. According to me, you do it. As a parent, you might say it. It doesn't work in the corporate world or wherever you're working. So think about it. Yes, there are multiple tools out there, but before any tool, you need to know what's the value behind it, understand the environment, and how we're going to apply it.
Cool. Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you. So
Absolutely.
Another good question from the audience. Which one is it? Praveen, I think it was. Yes, Praveen, thank you very much. So Andy, as a coach for an engagement, what reflections have helped you to improve you as a coach as part of your continuous improvement?
That's a great question. Thank you, Praveen. For me, it is literally practice. So as an Agile coach or a Scrum Master, or maybe as a project manager that is working within Agile, as an Agile delivery manager, you always need to remember, and we teach this in the class as well, you are not alone. So you have other people within your organization, other Scrum Masters, other Agile coaches that you can work with, you would have a coffee with, you can arrange a meeting with. You also, as part of our, any of you that are here that have taken our ATF ACC classes, you may be part of our alumni class. You are not alone. You are here with us. All of these things enable you to practice being a better coach. And you can have these like little sessions. So I have a story with my sister was working in an organization where she said, people don't listen to me. And I'm not my sister's coach or anything, but I said, like, I started switching into that coaching stance where I started asking powerful questions and saying, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? Trying to help her understand. And the next week, she got back to me and said, I had a chat with my line manager and we're doing things differently now. And for me, that was the most rewarding thing in my entire life. Like I've taught, this year I've taught maybe 1,000 people in training courses across our B2B and B2C organizations. But for me, my proudest moment is helping out my sister. You can practice. You can practice with your family. You can practice with your organization. You can practice with your fellow Scrum Masters. The most important thing is keep on practicing. Keep going in your Agile journey. Keep learning. And always be open to criticism as well. If someone says to you, I think you're completely wrong, the correct answer, according to me, is to say, let's talk about it. Tell me why. And learn and practice and develop. Always keep working. Because, as I said, the world is changing around us. The environment, the people, everybody is changing around us. So adapting, adjusting, this is the nature of agility. Adapt quickly. That's my takeaway.
Dude, you're on mute.
Sorry, my dog was setting up to bark. He didn't in the end, but he was looking like he was gonna. That's great, Andy. Thank you for that. That's great. I think that's a key thing. I think continuous improvement in in a lot of professions. It's a big thing. With a lot of professions, it does need to be more structured. Certain number of hours, certain number of points, certain number of classes. There's certain things you have to do. But the great thing about, I think, what Agile coaches do is, like you just said, you give an example of your sister right there. There's so many real life everyday things where just using the skills you're learning can help people out in different situations. So that's great. That's really good to hear. I've had a question in from Parminder, which I think is a great one as well. And I'd be quite keen to maybe give a bit of input on this one too, because I've had a bit of experience. But the question is, how do you influence the leadership of an organization to be more involved in the transformational journey? So I think that's a great question. Really good question. I think it's key. This is from my experience. Just for maybe the attendees, I'm involved a lot more pre-project with a lot of the work the Leadership Tribe do. So I'm involved in a lot of the conversations early on with leadership, with Scrum Masters, with end users, whatever it may be. And it's quite a key area of where I've noticed the projects that have been the most successful have had direct input with the leadership team. And the way that I've managed to get those conversations out and find out how invested they are, or if they're not invested, helping them get more invested, is by asking them to try and highlight what happens if we don't do this. Okay, what are we trying to make better here? Yeah, if it's revenue, then let's use some figure. Let's work from that. Let's look at where the numbers are now and where it needs to be. If it's attrition, you're losing clients. Okay, well, let's analyze that process. Where do you get involved in renewal conversations? If it's a software development cycle, where, et cetera, et cetera. So really try to hone in on where that pain point is and try and put a value on it. Whether it's commercial value, a time value, a number of clients value, whatever it may be, but find out what is that individual at that leadership's, what's the word? Passion almost. Like what's their motivation? If they're the chief financial officer, it's going to be how we can make savings. If it's the chief revenue officer, it's how we're going to make more sales. If it's the chief product owner, how are you going to make more error-free work? And so on and so forth. So you need to highlight what that is. And if there's a company vision that it aligns to, even better. But sorry, so that's my take pre-development. And maybe once the project kicks off and it's live, that may shift. And I think it'll be great to hear you guys' input from there.
I think that's a fantastic answer, Has, as well. And I think that the key words from Parminder's questions are leadership and transformation. So when we are working with leaders as coaches, and this is specific to the enterprise level, when we're enterprise coaches, we're working with leaders that have hopes and fears. They have desires, they have expectations, and they're scared. Everybody is scared of transformation. Lots of people are scared of change because I don't understand. Why do we need to change? Everything's working fine. People sometimes sit within their own bubble because of their hopes and fears. As enterprise coaches, we need to understand the emotions and the behaviors behind those leaders. And we need to understand the drivers of those leaders, what those leaders are doing and what it is that they expect and what they're scared of. That is step one. And then we can start working with them and saying, okay, you have these hopes. How can we make these hopes happen? You have these fears. How can we de-escalate these fears? This is all part of leadership training. And I think, you described that very, very well in your example as well.
Thank you. Cool.
Krishna, did you?
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes to go. But anything to add on that one, Krishna? Just before.
There is one more skill I would recommend. It's called digging. So digging is a skill you need to have. For you to uncover anything, you'll need to learn how to dig to the underlying challenge or the problem. For example, Hassan has said a wonderful thing is like, what is in it for them? For you to investigate what is in it for them, you need to be asking powerful questions, which is a tool within coaching. Asking what would they like to see? What would they like to hear? How would they like to feel when this problem is solved or when the goal is met? For that, understanding the goal, and before you go and start understanding, before you can start implementing anything, understand the current state. So you got the current state and the future state where everything has to be related to the organization and the person who's involved in bringing and supporting you. And there's another tool or the concept called stakeholder management. If you do not understand your stakeholders, they give you the power to make changes happen or they pull the rug under your feet. So yes, you have to bring them together. So how do you bridge those? There are multiple various factors. You can use the different tools you can use to bridge what they want from where they are, bridge them together. And how can we make this happen? It's not about you anymore as a change agent. It has to be always about the person or the organization. And for you to look at those, have a new perspective, have a new pair of glasses where you look at the problems. That's my quick.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think I think that complements what Andy and I were saying really well, because my thought process straight away went to the business and the business goal, but there's a person behind that business goal. And it's their hopes and dreams. Maybe they want to get this transformation completed to add it to their CV so they can go and apply somewhere else and say, look what I did to these guys. So it's not always about that. It's about that individual too, making them look good, feel good, and what's the word? Feel safe in it. They've got to put trust. You know, there's a big element of trust in making a change. So they need to feel comfortable as well. So by digging, asking the right questions and getting to that level of understanding, you can make sure that it brings any concerns to the surface. They can be addressed at the beginning, because you don't want them coming up halfway through or to the end. So I think that's all of those things together, I think, is what gets leadership involved. And leadership's involvement is just as essential in the overall transformation as the guy on the ground floor who's actually having his process changed. Because the stakeholder can pull the rug away, and they can if they don't see the value or they get too scared, the rug comes out. Cool. So we've got a couple of minutes left. There are 2 questions left as well, but I would also love to do a shameless plug for our services. So I'm going to choose the shameless plug, and then we're going to quickly give 10-second answers on the last 2 questions. So thank you everybody who's attended so far. Leadership Tribe, if you haven't worked with us before, We're a global learning and development organization and a consultancy. We do a lot of bespoke training and transformation projects. But really what we do every month is run ICAgile Certified courses. Our schedule is on our website, leadershiptribe.com. You'll see a breakdown of all of the projects, all of the training courses that we have. And within each of those, our schedule. So every month, there'll be a Agile Coach Bootcamp running every month. And every other month, there'll be an Enterprise Coaching Bootcamp running as well. Our next one is in October for the ENT and CAT class, which we've been speaking about the most today. So October is the next date for that one. There are still spaces available. You can do the course individually, ENT on its own or CAT on its own, but we do have a special price for the bootcamp if you take them together. So leadershiptribe.com, take a look on there. All our dates are on there. And we are also offering a discount as well. If for anyone who attends the webinar, if they use the code NEXTSTEP22, there'll be a discount at the checkout. There'll be a discount available for you on there as well. So NEXTSTEP22 for 15% off.
I'd just like to add to that, Hassan. Obviously, I took the ENT course a year or so ago, and this year I was accredited to teach it. I'm very passionate about it. I think it's a great course, and I highly, highly recommend it as well. That's my personal experience, and I would love to see you guys in the course.
I hope so. I hope so. Thanks, Andy. So just very quickly, because I don't want to take up any more time than we scheduled for the attendees. It's bang on the hour now. Last two questions, so 10 seconds each, guys. Quick example of how and when you failed after following an agile practice. Anything springs to mind? A quick failure.
I think the main thing that springs out for me is transparency. So with a lot of agile transformations, sometimes there are like people within the organization, or maybe even yourself, that are too scared to admit that they failed the sprint goal, or they failed to do their what they promised to do this week. This is okay. Fail stands for first attempt in learning. When we fail, and this is the, I think Nelson Mandela said this, he said, I never fail. I either win or learn. And that is a lesson that I feel like I learned too late in my career.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Andy. Krishna, a quick one.
One of the biggest challenges I've seen, I was brought in to help an organization where I've seen coaches come in and they think, oh, I need to fix a problem. Let me throw this tool, let me throw that tool. Without understanding what is the goal we are trying to achieve and start trying to fix things, I've seen projects fail. Say, for example, understanding what at the discovery level, understanding what is the goal of the project, what are we trying to achieve, what are the KPIs, what are the deliverables. So coaching sometimes sounds like kumbaya. Actually, it's not. If it's not delivering value, why do we even need a coach in the first place? So that value statement, without being clear about it, I wouldn't recommend anyone to start engaging with anyone. Hassan.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. And finally, what is your favorite agile tool when available for agile coaching? So one tool each. Krishna?
Value stream mapping.
Value stream mapping.
Practice from the lean school of thought.
ADKA, for me, ADKA, the ADKA model is because the ADKAR model, ADKAR, it can be applied to individual one-on-one coaching, but you can actually scale that model up for talking about coaching the enterprise as well. So that's my favorite model.
Fantastic. I just dropped the name of those both into the chat window as well. Mortiz, thank you as well, backing up on that on the ADKAR. Thank you. He is a great model to use. Is that in ADKAR? Is that covered in the ENT, or is that on the
So we talk about ADKAR in the ACC and in the ENT as well.
ACC and ENT,
yeah. In the ACC, it's more focused towards individual coaching, and in the EAT, we apply ADKAR to the enterprise level. So there's another reason to sign up to our course in October.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I've just popped in the chat window there. Any follow-up questions for our trainers or for us in general, hello@leadershiptribe.com. And the links are on there for the Agile Coach Bootcamp, which is the ATF, Agile Team Facilitation, and ACC, Agile Coach Certification. And also for the Enterprise Agile Coach Bootcamp, which is the ENT and CAT we've been talking about mostly today. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Andy, Krishna, fantastic. Thank you for taking the time out to share your wisdom. It's always appreciated. And yeah, so I won't take up any more of anyone's day. Thank you for attending, everybody. And hopefully we'll see you on one of our courses very soon. Thank you to all the questions and interactivity. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
People in India have a wonderful Ganesh festival. Ganesh Chaturthi. There's a big festival happening in India.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for taking
Absolutely.
time out today as well. Have a fantastic time. And send us pictures to hello@leadershiptribe.com as well, please.
I would love it. Send us some pictures.
We've got some of our guys are celebrating today. We'd love to see the pictures. Yes. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.